Lipedema is a chronic inflammatory disease. It both causes inflammation in the body and it is made worse and grows through inflammation. Tricky, right? Lipedema is an accumulation of fat cells that have seeped through into the subcutaneous tissues and has been surrounded by connective tissue out of control and becomes fibrotic. That's what causes the pain with lipedema, is that the fat is somewhere that we can't diet and exercise it away. It becomes encased in this hard collagen and it's sharp and it's spiky. So when we bump up against something or somebody pinches us, or the worst case scenario, the blood pressure cuff, you know what I mean, is agony. And that's because it's bumping up against these sharp bits of fibrosis in our skin, just under our skin. It is symmetrical. We are born with it. It is genetic. It comes through the family line. This is what we know so far. It's almost exclusively in women. And although it's said that it's 11% of women, I saw a study recently where it says 11 to 18% of women have lipedema, which is extraordinary numbers when you think that diabetes is 9% of people. And diabetes is everywhere, yet lipedema, 11 to 18%, and can cause diabetes, can cause out of control hormones, can cause mobility issues and knee replacements and all kinds of physical issues that the medical system has to take care of. Yet who knows about it? It's insane. There are reports that men have it. However, because it's sort of grown by estrogen levels, it's men that have high estrogen levels. I have actually, for the first time in my life, just recently, here in Bangkok, was walking behind a Western gentleman and I poked my husband. I said, if ever there was a man with lipedema, he was it. Classic lipedema signs. He was wearing flip-flops, thongs, so I could see the cuffing at the ankles. I could see the column-like legs. I could see his very heavy upper arms. Yes, he was a big man anyway, but to me, I was like, wow, that's the first time I have seen a man with lipedema. And I've heard that they're certainly out there, but it's because they've got high levels of estrogen and likely very low levels of testosterone compared to most men. So pain, tenderness, frequent bruising are also symptoms of lipedema, along with lots of other comorbidities like thyroid disease. There's a high percentage of people with lipedema have thyroid disease, me. Also, there is talk about people with fibromyalgia. It's actually lipedema undiagnosed. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but that is another thing that I have learned. POTS, so dizziness on standing, on getting up every time, that is a comorbidity. There's hypermobile joints, Durkheim's disease, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. There are a lot of comorbidities with this issue. Inflammation is one of the biggest keys here. Inflammation and hormones being steady is what we need to lessen the symptoms of lipedema. Now, in the lipedema world, your symptoms or your presentation of lipedema is characterized at this point in stages and types. So we're going to go through that today so that you can kind of get a bearing on what stage or type that you could be if you have not been anywhere where you can get a diagnosis from a lipedema specialist or from somebody who knows about lipedema. You can still get kind of a sense of, oh, you know what, that's possibly me, which is another tool in your toolkit that you can take to the doctor along with. There's a free checklist down below in the description box, so you can print that off and you can add to it, oh, I'm stage and I'm type, just so that the doctor potentially has more information to go off and can confirm or deny, or they may not know anything about it, so you can help them to learn more. Hopefully they're open to it. They're not always, are they? But that's okay. We've got to keep advocating for ourselves and teaching. I think that's the biggest thing in the lipedema world. We have to teach others. And as we teach others what we know, then we'll learn more, they'll learn more. And hopefully the 11 to 18% of women that have lipedema will have more airtime and more research money, and people will be more interested as they are in things like diabetes. Remember that lipedema is a progressive disease. That's why we have to keep an eye on inflammation and hormones. It can progress to lymphedema, and that is asymmetrical. That's what we see in people that have had lymph nodes removed, generally after cancer, and it's caused an issue with the lymph in that side where the lymph nodes have been removed. So lipedema can actually cause problems with the lymphatics to a degree that it develops into lymphedema. If you think lymphedema is at play in your body, there is a test called a Stemmer's test that you can do. I won't explain that in this video, but I will do one on that one as well to see whether or not lymphedema potentially is at play in your body along with the lipedema. The first thing we look at is stages. What stage are you with lipedema? So let's put up some graphics so that we can walk through the different stages in lipedema. So although there is no stage 0 here, there is a subclinical version of lipedema where you have it, but it hasn't progressed in any way. So it's visible in the limbs and there are symptoms starting to show like heaviness, so not wanting to exercise, achiness, sensitivity, bruising, that kind of thing. But there's no visual evidence of lipedema fat starting to get out of control. So that's a subclinical version. So then we go to stage 1. In stage 1, the skin's generally smooth and normal. There's an early, mild, disproportionate fat deposition in the lower body that you would just think, oh, I haven't exercised enough, or I'm just eating a little bit too many carbs and sweet treats and that kind of thing. Generally in this stage, the patient thinks, oh, okay, I just need to go on a diet, or I've just got thicker thighs than most people, that kind of thing. However, with stage 1, you can still feel the fat nodules under the skin if you have a feel for it. And the Stemmer sign, which is what tells you that you have a lymphedema, is negative. Stage 2, the skin surface becomes uneven and dimpled, often described as having a mattress pattern or cellulite. Most people just go, oh, look at that, cellulite's getting out of control. What have I done that I'm growing cellulite now for the first time? The fat deposition is more pronounced though in stage 2. It's a more pronounced evidence of the fat nodules when you palpate them. The fat pads in different areas of the legs are starting to become more evident, but there is also still a lot of different looks and variances to stage 2. Stage 3, visually, there is severe fat deposition. The legs definitely column-like, straight up and down, although I suspect that's what they've looked like right up until now anyway, but it's really severe in stage 3. There's always large folds and lobules of fat present. The tissue feels firm and fibrotic, particularly in the lower calves and the middle of the thighs. There's a pinkiness that can be observed to the lower calves due to venous impact, so the blood not returning back to the rest of the body. So stage 3 is when things are getting really kind of out of control. And you can see stage 3, if I flip through to the next lot of slides, you can see that stage 1, 2, and 3 can look very different in different people. In this slide, it's really obvious that the difference between stage 1 and stage 2, whereas stage 1 and stage 2 in the first slide was kind of almost the same, just a little bit different, whereas this one is very distinctly different. Stage 2 is where I got to. In this slide, the stage 3 is really prominent and distinct. There is a 4th stage, and it is called lipolymphedema. So this represents the association of lipedema with lymphedema, when we've caused an issue with the lymphatics and it has grown into lymphedema. So it involves really large folds and lobules of fat. The feet are now definitely involved with the puffiness and pitting edema. The patient may experience severe restriction or complete loss of mobility once you get to this point in time. So I'm just going to put up another slide now to show you lots of different versions of what lipedema fat can look like. Apart from stage 1 in a couple of these, the rest of them all have in common is those fat pads under the knees. That to me is a giveaway of lipedema, and the cuffing of the ankles. Stage 1 also, depending on what type you have, 5 generally always looks like the column-like legs. It's kind of no shape to them, right? Now we go to types. There are 5 different types of lipedema once you know your stage, where you're at. So for me, stage 2 was where I got to. It's probably where I still stand today. Even though I've lost weight, I would still be in stage 2. So the types of lipedema is the way they look on your body, where it manifests in the body, because there's different places in your body that it can manifest. So stage 1 on this slide is type 1. It's riding breeches, or jodhpur pants in fat distribution. It's around the hips and the backside. So it doesn't sort of go down past to the knees. It doesn't go to the tummy. It's just that hips and thighs. And this one often goes undiagnosed simply because people just go, oh, you're just eating a little bit too much, because everything else is fine. The difference, though, is the accentuated narrow waist. Generally, people in this situation, you'll look at them and go, oh, you're just eating too much because it's only your hips and thighs. Look how narrow your waist is. But then that should be a key indicator that something's wrong, that you have such a narrow waist, because when we put on weight, we don't just put on weight in one area. We put it on generally all over. It's funny how people just go, oh, you just need to work on, your squats or whatever it is, and dismiss the idea of a chronic disease. Stage 2 is the hips, backside, and thighs down to the knees. So this would be stage 2 and stage 3 in these pictures. You can see the fat pads on the backs of the knees here. You can see that you've got an overhang on the fronts of the knees. So it's graduated down to the knees, but the waist in both situations is still quite narrow compared to the lower body. And that's the key here, is like still really small. So in stage 3 picture here, look how small the upper trunk is compared to the lower trunk. That in itself should tell you there's something not quite right in the way the body functions. It's not just an eating issue. It's not just a lack of exercise issue. Otherwise, why would you have such a distinct difference between the upper trunk and the lower body? It doesn't make sense, does it? But yet it always seems to be dismissed. Type 3 is the waist down to the ankles. This is the waist and the hips down to the ankles. This is sometimes called harem pants or pantaloons because it's kind of the same size all the way down. So this is the stage 3 picture that we're looking at here for type 3. There's a clear cuffing around the ankles because the calf is affected. It's everywhere. You can see the knee pads, the backs, the fronts. You can see the nodules. It's all the way down. So that is type 3. For type 4, I had to bring in my own pictures here because type 4 is arms. So you can have, for example, type 2 and type 4 with your stage 2. So that's how doctors understand, oh, type 4, it involves the arms. This is often limited to the upper arms, but can extend to the wrist. So if there is clear cuffing of the wrist, then you can say it's the entire arm. Type 4 is usually seen combined with lower body types 3 and 4. It's usually the waist, hips, down to the ankles and with the arms. So you can see some of the pictures here, even though the pictures from lipedema.org, this one's mostly about hypermobile joints. This shows the upper arms in many cases. And you can see on my upper arm, particularly on the side view, my cuffing is at the elbow, and I seem to have a fairly normal forearm after that. So that also is not normal. That's not just weight. That is distinctly something not quite right again. So for myself, if you look at my legs and my upper arms, you are looking at stage 2 and type, I'm going to say 3 and 4. So the waist, hips down to the ankles and the arms. Now the final type, type 5, is the calves, the knee to the ankle. This can sometimes happen on its own without the rest of it, which is why it has its own type. And it's where the fat is predominantly localized to the calves. I don't have pictures of this one. It's really rare, that's why, but it may be the most painful of all. If you have that one, please let me know, because that's a type 5 to have the calves affected, but not the thighs and the knees. So that's an interesting one from my perspective. Why do we want to classify our disease? It's an interesting one, huh? Considering there's not a lot that can be done about it at this point, apart from a few conventional therapies and the surgery, if you can afford it. The reason that we have these classifications, these stages and types, is because there's no other way of diagnosing lipedema at this point. There are no blood tests, there are no biomarkers, there are no imaging, ultrasounds, or anything like that that can definitively say, oh, this is lipedema, you have lipedema. I'm sure there is research being done on this to be able to find a way to have a blood test or have some kind of scan or imaging done and go, oh, yep, look, there you go. One would assume after seeing the fat lobules in my own surgery pictures that they could do some kind of ultrasound and show the roundness rather than the flatness. But clearly they can't, or they would be doing that by now. Now, the importance of knowing the stages and knowing the types not so much, but the stages particularly, is so that you can mitigate progression. Progression is horrible. You do not want to get to lipolymphedema. This takes out your mobility, your whole quality of life. Even at stage 3, your quality of life is really struggling here, and it's awful. We don't deserve to have a quality of life that is so limited simply because nobody understands lipedema. So you need to understand that once you're getting up to stage 2 and 3, it is starting to get out of your control, and you need to reel it back any way you can. It doesn't matter if the little things that you do makes it seem like, oh, what could this possibly do? If it can't hurt, do it. Having said that, not all lipedema will progress to this stage. That's how unknown this disease is. But if you're finding that you are progressing because you've seen these pictures and you know that, 10 years ago you were say early stage 2 and now you're a late stage 3, that's your sign to yourself that yes, you have progressive lipedema. If you're a stage 1, you're 60 years old, you've been a stage 1 since you were 18 years old, and you've been the same, then likely is that you're not going to have progressive lipedema unless you have some kind of massive inflammatory issue or some kind of really big hormonal issue that happens to you. So I would have been a stage 1, early stage 1, right up until I was 21. Then when my thyroid kicked it, and it took them a couple of years to figure out what was wrong with me, so my hormones were way out of control until that diagnosis, I put on the 50 kilos then, and that was it. That was it for me. So I had a massive issue. Thyroid disease is an inflammatory disease like lipedema. So I had this massive influx of inflammation and hormones out of control, double whammy, which is what set me on the road of progressive lipedema. If you've been type 1 all your life through puberty, pregnancy, menopause, all the hormonal issues, I'd say you're going to stay that way. But you never know. This is a tricky disease and we don't know nearly enough about it. But hopefully today you've learnt more about your own stages and types, and you're more switched on about whether or not you have a progressive type and you need to really take care of yourself and bring it in when it comes to inflammation and hormones, or whether or not you can be a little bit more flexible with your food and your lifestyle choices. If this video has been helpful at all to you today, please like and subscribe and come along and join the Lipedema Life family. And if you need that free checklist to take to your doctor, it is in the description box below, along with buy me a coffee if you feel so inclined.